This is video 2 of the ccrp.org content contribution series. In this video, we're going to be focusing on the content type called grant. We're going to look at the anatomy of a post that already exists and see what that looks like. Then we're going to go into the content type interface, and we're going to look at the fields that we have to populate there. We're going to go ahead and add some new grant content, and we're going to edit some content. So let's jump right in. Keeping with the theme of interacting with the site as a user who's interested in East and Southern Africa and FRN content, we're going to look at the Push-Pull FRN page. When you enter a grant page, you'll see that there's a hero image that spans the top of the page. The grant short name is listed in bold in a gray bar, and then there's a few fields below it. Currently, we have the lead organization. If there were partner organizations, they'd be listed immediately below. We have the tags for communities of practice, where we've, in this case, selected East and Southern Africa and FRN. Then we have the field of overview. We have the field of grant aims and outputs and outcomes. Now, this isn't all of the content that we'll need to add when we add a new grant, but this is what's available to a user when they visit the site and go to a grant page. So let's check out the fields in the content contribution interface. I'm going to go up to the top and select Add New Grant, and we'll look at the fields that we have to populate there. The first field you'll encounter is a title field. In that field, we're going to put the short name of the project. Then you'll have a hero image field. You'll be able to add an image that relates to the project using this field. Following that, we have the grant long name, the grant number, a lead organization field, a field to add any partner organizations, start date, and the project's duration in months. As we scroll down the page, you'll see some blocks for overview, aims, and outputs and outcomes. And then we move on to our taxonomy fields. For grants, we have the taxonomies of countries, AEI levers, crops, and grant status. Then we have the ability to show the project on a map. We'll talk a little bit more in depth about that in a moment. Before we go ahead and add a new grant, I want to point out some pretty critical pieces over on the right-hand side of the screen. You'll see that there's a thumbnail image. We need to add this thumbnail image for all of the grants that we add. This shows up in the little circle in the grants library and in other places across the site. Following that, for all content, there's some region and portfolio options. We must tag every piece of content that we add to this site with region and portfolio. This is really what drives the site. Okay, so let's get started with adding some actual grant information. In this title field, we're going to add the short name of the grant. In this case, we're going to be adding the Post-Harvest Uganda 3 grant to the website. We can move down to the next section, the hero image section. If you select this Browse button, that'll open up your files on your computer, and you can select a related image and add it there. I'm going to select an image from East and Southern Africa, so that's where this grant is located. By clicking on and selecting Open on my computer, that's going to apply it to this field. You can see that the file name is listed here now, so we're ready to move on. We're going to add the grant long name. The grant number for this is 18234. The lead organization is National Agricultural Research Organization, so we'll add that in the lead organization field. I don't currently have any partners listed for this grant, so I'm going to skip this field. Moving on to start date, this was a November 2018 grant, so we can just type that in. And the duration of this project is 12 months. Scrolling down to the long text fields, this overview section should be about 1 to 2 paragraphs long and a total of 125 to 200 words. It's just a brief overview of this project. So let's add that. The aims, again, 1 to 2 paragraphs of content. And moving on down to outputs and outcomes, this is a 1 paragraph section, just summarizing the overall objectives and intended outputs and outcomes. So we'll add that here. So with those 3 fields filled in, we can move down to some taxonomy fields. The first field is country. In this case, we're in Uganda. Then we'll add our AEI levers. You can add as many as you'd like from this list. They're checkbox fields, so just check all that apply. The crop for this particular project, we'll say legumes, and this is an active project. Now, I'm going to show this project on the map, but I don't actually have any coordinates for where the project is working. What I do have is the address of the lead organization. So for demonstration purposes, we'll add that now. I've selected this Show on Map checkbox, and I moved over to the right-hand side of the screen, and I'm going to select Add Marker. Once you open up the map, you can type in an address or directly add your coordinates here. I'm going to put in the address of the headquarters. Once you enter the address, scroll all the way over to the right-hand side, and you'll see this search icon. Go ahead and select that. And it dropped a pin right on the map, so we know we're good to go there. If you wanted to add another location for this grant, you could add another marker. I think we're going to try and stick to about 1 per country per project. So for a total of 3 to 4 pins maximum. So let's scroll up. And we'll finish with a few final details here. We're going to select the region and portfolio, of course this being one of the most critical taxonomies in the entire site. In this case, we're looking at an FRN project in East and Southern Africa COP. So I've selected those 2. And I'm going to add a thumbnail image. Using the same browse option, we'll open up the images on my computer and we'll find an image that relates to this. I'll select that image, hit open, and the image is listed here, so we know that it's been applied to this page. Once we've finished filling in all these fields, we can go ahead and submit this item for review. When you select this box, it'll notify an editor that this piece of content needs to be reviewed and then made available to the public. So you'll see that the status indicator now says pending review, so we know that it's been submitted for review. We can go up and preview the post we've just created now. You can preview your post using this button directly above the Submit for Review button, or up at the top you'll see a note, Post Submitted, Preview Post. Let's do that. Here we are. We have our header image spanning the top of the page. We have our short name in the gray bar. Our lead organization is listed, following with the communities of practice that we've tagged this project as. We have our country, we have our overview, our grant aims, and our outputs and outcomes. Now, as I'm looking at this, I notice a few inconsistencies in our text, so let's learn how to edit this page. I'm going to head up here because this is the page that I want to edit, and I'm just going to hit Edit Grant. That's going to take me back into the Content Contribution interface, and we can make any changes we'd like to there. So the first thing I noticed was that this abbreviation has been spelled out twice, so let's correct that. And I've also noticed that post-harvest is written a little bit differently across this grant information. We have post-harvest with a hyphen here, and in various other locations, we have it written without a hyphen. So I'm just going to make those corrections now. All right, it looks like our changes have been saved. So I think we're all set. Let me go back to the dashboard and show you really quickly. Now that we've added this grants, if we pull up the listing of grants, you'll see that it's listed as pending here. You can still make edits, and when this has been approved and posted, this will no longer be here. And you'll see that it's been published because it'll be indicated as such within this published date column. I think that's all for now. In the next video, we'll be taking a closer look at the resource content type.